What is up, guys? Welcome to now the fourth podcast of the Lit Podcast, Last Inning Touchdown. Thank you guys so much. Our last podcast was our most viewed podcast to date. Last time I checked, I believe it got up to like 17 views, and to a lot of you, that's nothing, but to us, that feels pretty good. It feels pretty good to watch the videos get a little bit more viewership each time. So once again, though, I'd like to see some of those viewers turn into subs. So hit that sub button, hit that little bell so you get notified every time we post a new video. Make sure you follow us on Twitter, which is below me right there. Below me. It's below my picture right here. But thank you guys so much. We're having a good time with this. We're having a good time.
I'm having a good time.
Hey. The one thing I did notice that I'm going to make sure doesn't happen is I felt like the last video was kind of quiet. So I'm going to make sure that doesn't happen again. Maybe that was just me on my end, but when I watched the video, it was kind of quiet. So I'm going to turn it up a little bit this time. Anyways, so on to MLB. This is a little bit old news now because it announced the day we posted our video. Freddie Freeman and Jose Abreu are the MVPs for the 2020 season. I know we got Freddie Freeman right. Did we get Jose Abreu right also?
Oh, I went easy 2 for 2. Yeah.
I had
no play. I was 100% on both.
I think that we got those pretty easily, but it feels like it's been so long now that I can't remember.
I walked into that I was 100% on both, that Jose and Freeman won, and if either of them didn't win, it was a full-on robbery. They were, because you were a little more concerned about Freeman's lack of home runs in the home run world, but every other number he did was just so much better than everybody else.
And I liked Freeman. I just sometimes
Freeman.
I gotta play a little devil's advocate and try and think like the voters might, just to throw a little wrench in there when it's kind of obvious to us.
Yeah.
But the big story that broke today of recording is Robinson Cano getting himself suspended again for the PEDs. I don't know. I'm not surprised, but I'm surprised. And I say that because I'm not surprised because he's already done it. And when you kind of break out and you kind of have like a good season again after being one of these PED guys, it's kind of the first thought that crosses your mind. But then I'm also like surprised, like how many times can you get suspended before you stop doing it? Like that's the part that always surprises me.
Yeah, it was sad. Especially having a bounce back year. I mean, maybe it's because the steroids allowed him to recover a little quicker, day in and day out, but who knows? It sucks for baseball. It sucks for the Mets. It always sucks when anybody, it doesn't matter if it's someone famous or not, gets suspended for steroids, because no matter what, it makes the sport look bad in any sport.
And that's the part that and I really didn't think I was going to get on a little tangent here with steroids, but the part that always throws me off is when a guy like Robinson Cano gets suspended for it. The first thing that crosses my mind is, why did he think he was going to get away with it? And how many people are getting away with it that Robinson Cano thought he would? That's the part that always throws me off, is if a guy like Robinson Cano is getting caught, how many people are not getting caught that makes Robinson Cano say, I'm going to risk it and try it? Yep. That's always the part that's kind of tough. But then there's the side of me that says, I almost don't really want to know and just want to enjoy the sport and kind of just, I don't know. I guess I kind of look at it as it is what it is, and everyone knows that it has side effects. And if you're willing to take that risk of suspension and those side effects, I mean, I get it. I get why they do it. I mean, if you're a borderline career minor leaguer, or this is what pushes you into being a major leaguer, I totally get it. I mean, you go from being nobody to at least a possibility of somebody. I mean, I get it.
One of my examples is when someone got suspended. I think it was like 2013 or 2014. Someone big got suspended. It may have been like Braun or somebody.
I could see.
And my example was, at the time, the Cardinals' top prospect at the time was a young kid named Colton Wong.
Never heard.
And it's like, Colton Wong, top prospect, is looking at all these guys and trying to figure out how to make it in the league and how to take that next step as a player. Like, if all of a sudden he would have taken a steroid, would all of a sudden he have just been like taking this next jump that a guy like Ryan Braun spent years doing? Because Colton Wong he's a freak athlete, still is. Not saying he's one of the best players in baseball, but if you add that extra healing every day maybe that extra, little muscle in there, all of a sudden he maybe becomes a perennial all-star or something. I don't know, and make an extra $50 million. So
I do think that
it's the risk and rewards.
In general, the huge misconception is that steroids make you good at anything.
Oh yeah, no.
I actually worked with somebody that injected steroids at one point in my life. I worked at Domino's with somebody that injected steroids. They do nothing for you unless you are in the gym constantly busting your butt every single day, multiple times a day, hours at a time. It works as hard as you do. You just see the reward a lot more extreme than anyone else would. But you have to work just as hard, and you still have to be good. Steroids don't make me see a fastball. Steroids don't make me hit the curveball. Like
Barry Bonds saw one pitch a game.
Right.
Well, that was anywhere near the strike zone.
He saw 4 pitches a game. They were out of the zone.
Yeah, dude, exactly. That dude was intentionally walked so many times, ridiculous, and he still was, hitting home runs at a record rate day in and day out. And just because he took steroids doesn't mean he didn't barrel a baseball better than literally anyone ever in baseball history, because he got walked more than anyone in history and somehow still hit more home runs than anybody else. I've always been a big fan of the steroids of either let all of them in or let none of them in.
Yeah, that's where it's always tough. That whole conversation.
You have guys like Hank Aaron who were known for taking human growth hormone, but it wasn't tested.
Yeah, and that's what's always tough is because I think that throughout history, I think players in all sports have always taken whatever was the best thing out there for you. And so it's kind of hard to say, like, it's hard to blame them for trying to do what they believe is best. Because, I mean, there weren't that many studies that said this stuff was bad for you for the longest time. And, sometimes people just say, well, you know what, in today's world, so many people get cancers and things like that anyways. So, why not push yourself here and just hope for the best? I mean, I don't know.
Also, the big winner in all this is the Mariners.
Okay. The Mets are paying his contract.
Nope. Mariners saved $4 million today.
Oh, there you go. Well, the Mets, with their new ownership, now have 20-something million off the books for this next year, too.
Yeah, but they're also losing a perennial all-star. The Mariners lost literally nothing, and then they also gained.
Yeah, I mean, personally,
$3.8 million.
I don't think honestly, I don't think the Mets lost anything as far as a position player. I think that Robinson Cano last year, a lot of that performance was probably due to, I mean, you really can't look at the numbers there. It's like the guy has been trending downwards, unhealthy for so many years. And then all of a sudden he's playing every day and batting almost 400. And it's like, and then he tests positive for steroids. It's kind of fishy.
Yeah, but like you said, steroids don't barrel at baseballs.
They don't. But what I'm saying is he went from not playing and not playing well because he wasn't healthy to playing every day and batting, for a long time this year. He was batting like 380. The dude was insane for the first half of this shortened season. But I mean, don't get me wrong, he's still a good player, but I don't think he'll ever sustain and be that good of a player day in and day out. His body can't handle it anymore. And so taking that steroids allowed him to handle it this year is what it seems. I mean, it just seems a little interesting that the best year he's had in a while is the same year that he tests positive. I mean, it just kind of goes hand in hand there. But what is interesting, though, is now the Mets have another large chunk of money this year off the books. They do have to pay him for 2 more years, which I'm not really sure how they got themselves in that. But I think
Mets got them in that?
I'm saying I don't understand how it's just an interesting predicament that the Mets got themselves in is what I'm getting at. They owe.
He just signed a 10-year deal.
Yeah, so I actually have a Mets fan. His name's Falco's here. He does a podcast of his own called 27 Outs. And I like to tweet him, little stuff when things happen in the NL East because he's a Mets fan. I'm a Marlins fan. And I said, so how do you feel about this issue, this thing coming up with Cano? And basically he told me that he loves it because it frees up the money, but also frees up room for like a Jeff McNeil to get more playing time, or some of their prospects in the minor leagues to get some more playing time. on top of more money for free agency. So I definitely think I tend to agree with him there. And I think that probably is the way you got to look at it at this point, because Cano has shown you that he really can't play a full season anymore. The only thing I think they are missing out on is from what I know of it, Cano is a pretty good clubhouse guy, a good clubhouse leader. And so they do lose that. But I do think that this is probably for the better with their club, in my opinion, at least.
I just don't know, man. He's just always been a great baseball player. Been a very, I don't know about defense anymore because he's a really big second baseman, but I believe he's got a Gold Glove in his career. He played, and like you said, last 2 years, 2018, 2019, he missed a lot of games, but literally up until those 2 years, the dude was never hurt. And then this year came out and raked when he was fully healthy. So you can say the fact that, maybe he struggled in 2019 was due to health and less other things. But even when he played half a season in 2018, I'm looking at it now, 303 with a 375 on base. To me, it just seems like that maybe
2018 is also the last time he got suspended. That's when he got his 80-game suspension. So
nice, that's why he only played 80 games. But I just see his stats at 287, 298, 280, 303, and then he had a really down 2019, 256, and then last year he came out and raked again. Do I think he's as good as he was last year? No, because there's like a 5-year gap to show that he was not at the same equivalent as that he was. But I think they're losing something. I mean, it depends on how quickly you want them to win, right? If you're a Met, like he's definitely someone you want playing every day if you're ready to win right now. Yes, it gives guys like Jeff McNeil and other prospects more playing time, but he's a veteran leader in the clubhouse that you're going to want during it if you want to try to make the postseason. So I think it depends. It does free up $24 extra million over the next couple of years, though. So
it's only this year. They still owe him 24 for next year and the following year.
No, I know, but it's still $24 million. Yeah. You can sign.
Yes.
You can sign one guy 3 years, $24 million just based on that contract, and an $8 million guy in baseball is a pretty big time play.
I think that's going to be. I think that's going to be a big kicker because you've got a new ownership that probably wants to spend money anyways, and now they just said, "Well, here's free money because we were going to pay this guy anyways."
That's a very good everyday starter at $8 million. Matt Carpenter made like $8 million for like 8 years, and he was a stud for like 7 of them. So you can get a really good.
And I think another way to look at it too is, let's say that they were looking at a JT Realmuto, and let's say that maybe they were like, "Man, that 1 year at the end of his contract, maybe he wants 5, and we only wanted to give him 4." Well, now you're saying, well, you could look at that first year as pretty much free because we were going to pay Cano anyways. And so now you're like, well, who cares if I pay him at the end when I didn't want to? So maybe they give somebody an extra year who they were going to sign that they were kind of on the verge about signing. Maybe they get them because they can give them that extra year because they look at this year as kind of like free.
I mean, it's kind of like it can be a blessing or just a total negative either way you look at it. But depending on how you feel like looking at it. But I mean, they could do kind of what in a different way with signing free agents as kind of the Colts did when Manning got hurt and they were drafting Luck. Is the Colts were pretty close to being pretty good at football, but then Manning got hurt and had neck surgery, and then obviously in a quarterback-driven league, they lost a lot of games. At 1-15, they let Manning go and drafted a very good young quarterback in Andrew Luck, who then came in and won 11 games in his first year because they were very close. They weren't like most number 1 overall picks. So just like I said, in the Mets, not saying baseball draft picks matter, but that's what you're saying, like a couple extra guys, a couple extra $5 million guys, or one extra $8 million guy over the next couple of years, or go make a big splash for JT because you saved some money, all of a sudden put you over the hump.
The other thing is to think about too. I mean, with the National League, if they add a DH, well, that's an extra position player that you may not have been expecting to pay. Well, now you freed up money to get another guy that can slot into that kind of role for you too.
JD Martinez.
So that's what's kind of nice there is it's basically free money for an ownership that wants to spend money. And I think that's going to play pretty largely here.
Yeah, that's a big deal because it's not like they're a team that doesn't want to spend money. The Mets want to spend money. So this $24 million is a big deal. You save the Cardinals $24 million, they're probably going to do nothing because they're boring and I hate life. But you save the Mets $24 million, they're going to go spend that $24 million elsewhere. They're like,
especially this year.
Exactly. They were like, this is what we want to spend. It's like, oh, now we have $24 million off the books. I'm still spending that $24 million on other players. So you get 3 $8 million guys, and there you go. But if you're the Mets, last year they signed Walker and Porcello for $19 million total. So who knows what the hell they do.
Yeah, and which, not a big fan of those signings, anyways. But
They were terrible.
yeah, absolutely.
Walk out a 5.5 ERA and they signed him for a $9 million.
The Mets, unfortunately, I feel like have spent money in pretty dumb places over the last
always
5-10 years.
Anyways,
the other so the thing I almost forgot about here, and luckily I did a quick MLB.com type in to look at the latest news, because I was blanking on what the other big topic was, is that Theo Epstein has stepped down in Chicago. And so the reports were that the way Theo feels is that 10 years is long enough for him anywhere he goes. So he doesn't want to be in a front office for more than 10 years. Well, he just finished his 9th year with the Cubs. And I guess what is being reported is that Theo felt like the Cubs were ready to start rebuilding because they're losing a lot of, they got a lot of players on the last years of their contract and things like that. And so he felt like right now was a good time to step down and allow the next GM to step in and kind of do what they want to do with the team now that his team and his era has kind of passed. So that's where it's tough, is because like part of you wants to say like, I don't know, I think he's jumping ship because he knows the team's not very good anymore. But then at the same time, like he did leave a really good Red Sox team to go to the Cubs and made a good Cubs team. So I think that I guess I'll buy it. I will buy that he is leaving because that's how long he planned on staying and he's ready to pass it on to someone else. I have heard that he is also planning on stepping back and not getting another job, that he wants to just spend time with his family and decide what he wants to do at a later date.
Well, he is 46, so I don't know if he has kids.
He does. He has a family.
When my dad was 46, I was in high school. Right. So you get to see your kids do things and grow up easier, because I'm sure he's working like a psychopath and he works a lot of nights. One of my dogs is barking while they're sleeping.
That's right. We love dogs here.
I know, we do. They're... both of them.
We'll have to get a Ollie and Winston t-shirt made for the podcast.
Absolutely, dude. It's just, I don't know. I mean, as a Cardinals fan, Theo Epstein did but didn't accomplish what he wanted, because he accomplished that World Series title that for both organizations, the Red Sox and Cubs, making him an absolute badass Hall of Famer. But he basically just built a dynasty in Chicago, but then blew it up to win that 1 year. And he did win that 1 year, but he lost a lot of guys that would still be key contributors to the team. And the Cubs aren't as bad as anyone ever gives them, like says they were. Going into the year, a lot of people said the Cubs were going to be garbage, and I predicted them to win the Central. And they won the Central because they were the best team the whole year. But he made some pretty weird moves. I mean, he traded for Chapman, and then they used him to death because they knew they weren't going to re-sign him. So literally Joe Madden just used him every game for 2 innings and almost died. And then he almost blew the World Series in the 9th inning to Rajai Davis. And then they traded Gleyber Torres. They traded who they trade to the Eloy Jimenez, who's an absolute guy who just destroys baseballs out in Chicago, in the other Chicago South Side. And then Dylan Cease for Jose Quintana. Signed Jason Hayward, which is a questionable move, because his big thing that I learned that he does is he takes the best players off of their biggest rival. So in this case, it was his big thing was, I'm going to take John Lackey and Jason Hayward, the 2 big Cardinal free agents, and I'm going to take them both. Because what that does is that adds to me a little bit, but more importantly, it subtracts from them. He did the same thing in Boston, signed guys like Johnny Damon, and just made some big signings like that and took them away from New York. So that's kind of what his goal was, and that's kind of, I think it's a really good strategy. But it did cost him a lot when you sign a guy like Jason Hayward, who's basically a glorified bench player in 2019, making like $20 million. I have a lot of thoughts on Theo Epstein. Obviously, he's incredibly successful, but they had the parts there to build an absolute dynasty. Sign a guy like Lester, Javi Baez, Chris Bryant, Anthony Rizzo, Kyle Schwarber, and not even talking about their catcher, who's an absolute stud as well. I mean, they had a lot going on there, and won one, and never went to another. What?
The Marlins beat him in the first round.
Yeah, Marlins beat him in the first round. Whatever. They weren't good this year, but I'm talking about,
I just need to throw it out there.
Like, they had a 2016, 17, and 18 trend where they could have really done some big damage, and they won in 2016. And then 19, their whole team fell apart, so you can't blame them for that. when Javi, Chris Bryant, and Rizzo are all missing the entire month of September. Javi only came back against the Cardinals in their series because they wanted to use him off the bench just in case, but his hand was still broken.
I was going to say, I thought he was still broken.
Yeah, he had like a broken hand or wrist, something like that. And Rizzo was like literally like sick to death or something. He was just struggling. He was like in the hospital on and off, and he's trying to play through it. And that was when the Cardinals' famous sweep of them happened, St. Louis famous anyway. And it was just a crazy, just their whole team got hurt, so you can't blame them for that. But I don't know. It just seemed like you expected more from the team. If all 30 teams of baseball were to see that lineup in 2017 after they won the series in 16 and say, yeah, they're never going to do anything impressive ever again after 2016, you'd be confused because you're like, Jose Quintana, Yu Darvish, John Lester. They had John Lackey, Javier Baez, Jason Hayward, Anthony Rizzo, Chris Bryant, Kyle Schwarber. Why can't I remember their catcher's name? Because he's like one of the better players. Wilson Contreras. Jesus. Yeah. Wilson Contreras.
Well, and I don't even think
Gleyber Torres was in their system before they traded for Chapman. Like, there was just so many guys, and they came out with one. He did his job. He won one. But I felt like they had more.
Well, and so what's interesting about that...
it's not over either, by the way. But
no.
They can still win.
I believe... I was watching MLB Network this morning, and I believe that that Theo was actually really humble, considering he's a guy that took two franchises that hadn't won in forever and turned them into World Series teams. He actually said, he goes,
42. He won 2 World Series.
Yeah, and so that was what they were talking about. Is they said Theo did the same thing in Boston that he did in Chicago. He did the exact same thing. He showed up, built a team, won 1 World Series. And then the team just slowly got worse. And
well, did they win in 20? Was he there in 2007? Because they won in 4 and 7.
I don't know. I was trying to.
He maybe won 2. Anyways, regardless.
Well, but what Theo actually came out and said, which is kind of humble for a guy who accomplished, what was, and he said, he goes, I figured out how to build a World Series winning team, but I couldn't figure out how to maintain a World Series winning team. So like he and I don't know, that's definitely not a quote. I totally paraphrased what I remember hearing. But basically he was saying that like he figured out a recipe that could win a World Series, but he couldn't figure out the recipe to consistently winning a World Series. And I think that was very much true to what we saw in both places that he showed up. And now Jed Hoyer was his little sidekick there in Chicago, who is now taking over as the GM.
He was in Boston too.
He was. So he is now going to be the GM for the Cubs and get his chance to do his thing. So as a Cubs fan and a baseball fan, and what does this mean for the Cubs? What do we think this is going to mean for the Cubs? We got to keep in mind that they have Bryant, Baez, Rizzo, and Schwarber all like ready to be free agents at the end of 2021. Contreras into 22, and then you got Darvish, who still has 3 years, and Hendricks, who still has 3 years. So you've got some of their core ready to leave, but then their pitchers are still here. I mean, you named all of these players when talking about how good they are. So that really goes to show you. I mean, that's in my opinion, that seems like too many players to pay. So I mean, what's going to happen here with this?
Bryant's out. Chris Bryant doesn't want to play in Chicago.
Chris Bryant apparently didn't want to play baseball at all last year because he batted like 186.
That's true, but he doesn't want to play in Chicago. He hasn't had fun in Chicago. He's been really pissed. He hated Joe Madden, apparently. Like they kind of butted heads.
Which is interesting because I remember when him and Rizzo were like best friends. Like they were like tight. And then it was like all of a sudden Bryant was like, I want out.
He's also been incredibly bitter over the fact that they sat him for those 13 games in the minor leagues to get an extra year on his contract, which as an organizational standpoint is the right move. But to Chris Bryant, obviously, it pissed him off. Because if you remember that spring training, he was the best player in all of spring training, period. And they sat him for those 13 days or whatever it was. And it gives him a full extra year. And the Cardinals did it to Carlson, but Carlson wasn't the best player in spring training. But it pissed him off. He sued the team. He lost an arbitration once to the Cubs instead of settling, which in my opinion is stupid. Why argue over $500,000 when you're talking about an MVP, a guy who won a World Series with you, and you're really gonna, as a team, go to court to tell this lawyer he's not as valuable as he thinks he is?
Yeah, that's
But
what's tough is
arbitration's
I've
always a
heard those
really
are ugly. They're ugly.
arbitration's always a really hard thing. But why the hell are you going to arbitration over your perennial MVP caliber player? I'm not saying he really is, but he won an MVP and he won a World Series for your team, literally
Rookie of the
making the
year,
final out.
3-time All-Star. I mean,
Exactly. He has all this, and you're going to go to court over like it was like $800,000. It's like pay the man. It's a lot of money, but it makes you look good for one. You don't piss him off more than you've already pissed him off, and let him go. And yeah, Chris Bryant didn't want to play at all last year, but apparently so did none of the Cubs. But their pitching decided to.
well,
But
and that was what was tough last year is that there was a lot of underlying things thinking that his wrist never got better because he got hurt early. He was hurt for part of the year with a wrist injury. And so there were some people that believed that he never really bounced back from that. And I think, but you also got to remember with him knowing his contract was up soon, he probably wanted to try and play and, put up some numbers to try and get that contract. But he ended up batting 206 with 4 home runs. So not good.
no.
Not a good year for Mr. Chris Bryant. But I am interested
Kyle
to see.
Schwarber it's good for the Kyle Schwarber's good for the Cubs if he can prove that he can actually hit bombs. Being a lefty DH would be really nice in Chicago if he can be more consistent because he can't play defense anywhere. He's garbage. So it'd be nice for them to already have that, even though he's becoming a free agent. But I don't think he's worth that much.
Well, and that's the other thing is so Kyle Schwarber batted 188 this year. The
Exactly.
entire team was terrible this year. And so that's what's really tough is all of their stars were rough. And they're all going into contract years at the end of next year. So they got another season to see what happens. But the question is, if you are Jed Hoyer now, we're putting on the Jed Hoyer shoes, so hopefully you brought them into your room before closing the door. Who are you keeping? How are you handling this? Because I mean the question is, are you completely rebuilding, or are you keeping a couple players and trying to kind of cardinal it and retool, not rebuild?
Cubs they're going to cardinal it. They're not the Cubs of the 2000s. They're going to cardinal this thing and try to survive it. You're going to sign Rizzo. He's the fan favorite. He's been there a long time. He's the cancer story. He's just a great guy too. Rizzo's the guy. You sign Rizzo, you sign Javi because Javi's also the exciting guy that sells tickets. You let Bryant go because he doesn't really want to be there in the first place. And then Schwarber's kind of hit or miss, You'll have to base it off of is he going to be good next year? Because now...
And how much does he want?
Exactly. Because right now, I don't think he's worth that much. So if he wants anything, you leave him. I think the DH will definitely benefit a guy like him. But at the same time, I still don't know if he's that good. When he came up, said he was a guy... I literally said this, that he was a guy who could challenge the home run record because of just how he hit baseballs and Wrigley and stuff like that. Just a single season, just because he could just roast baseballs. And he just turned out that he couldn't hit even as close as anybody thought he would. Especially when his rookie year, when he hit a ball 9,000 feet off of Kevin Segrist in Game 4 of the postseason, I think it was, maybe Game 3. That landed on top of that billboard and right, like, oh my Lord, it's the farthest ball I've ever seen hit in my life. And I don't know, I think the Cubs are still good. I think they have all the pieces there. I think going to contract year is actually probably good for them because guys like Chris Bryant are in between making $80 million and $180 million. Guys like Javi Baez are in between making $120 million and $240 million.
So this is
depending on 1 year.
A bit of a factor as well here. So I was just quickly looking this up while you were talking there. So Rizzo is 31. Brian is 28, Baez is 27, Schwarber's 27. So you've got 3 of the 4 guys heading into their just starting their prime. And then you could argue that Rizzo's kind of, heading off of his prime now. I mean, I get that Rizzo is your fan favorite. He's your face of your franchise. He's exactly what you want. But I think you also got to be careful there saying, our team on paper is not going to be very good. I'm not going to blow the budget to bring back Anthony Rizzo if he's not performing and he's 32.
I don't think Anthony Rizzo is going to cost that much. He's a Gold Glove first baseman who's got the leadership in the clubhouse. He's just the guy to me. I mean, I would take him in a second. I really like Anthony Rizzo, and I think he does a lot of things right. And I don't think you're going to have to break the bank for a guy like Anthony Rizzo at all because he's a guy who just does a lot of the things right and maybe not be the most flashy guy. He also hits anywhere in the lineup because Joe Madden literally batted him everywhere for whatever reason. And
I think that hurt him
And
too. I think
feel
that
like
it hurt him.
I agree. It hurts everybody. No one likes to move every day, but I'm a big fan. If I'm the Cubs, I'm signing Rizzo. That guy, I don't know this is a fact, so anyone baseball references, whatever you want to do. I think that guy in the last 5 years has just absolutely assaulted the Cardinals on a regular basis. And that's a good thing as a Cubs, like, because we all know what's happening in the NL Central. It's the Cardinals, and it's always the Cardinals and everybody else. Doesn't mean the Cardinals are the best team per se, but it's always the Cardinals and the argument of who's right there with them, if they're better or worse or whatever. The Cardinals are always first or second, right? So the team you have to look to challenge is the Cardinals. I personally think the Cubs are better than the Cardinals.
And the other thing is, too, in all honesty, even if Bryant and Schwarber walk, they haven't really been the same players. Rizzo has been really solid every year. This was just a down year this year. Baez was trending to be an absolute stud in the major leagues. And so you definitely want to bring those two back. You've got, like I said earlier, you've got Darvish, you've got Hendricks for another 3 years. You know, you don't just let your team suck with pitching like that. But not to mention the fact that, like, right now as it sits, the NL Central's not very good. So it's like you don't have to have a powerhouse team to put yourself in the playoffs and be in contention.
Yeah. They got 4 good teams, no great teams.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean,
I actually think only 3 of them are good. I think Milwaukee's not good at all.
I don't think Milwaukee's good, and I don't think Cincinnati just lost their best pitcher now because they're not going to re-sign Bauer. And Cincinnati, I don't think Cincinnati can maintain over a full season. I don't think that they have the stuff to maintain over a full season.
I think Cincy's better than they played, personally. But I'm a big person into the whoever wins the offseason is never as good as they're going to be.
Right. I agree.
And guess what? They won the 2019 offseason, and they weren't as good as anyone expected. Like, a lot of people are just jumping all aboard they're going to win the Central bandwagon, and they weren't. And they were never going to. But I think they're better. Even if they lose Bauer, I still think they're better than people are going to give them credit for. They can compete because the whole division is good, and there's no one who's great. So
I just looked this up just for entertainment. I just literally baseball referenced the Cincinnati Reds this year. If I asked you, what do you think the highest batting average on? I don't know. I just pulled up their team here, and they have their position players. What do you think the highest batting average of a player on their team was last year?
I don't know, probably like 254. I mean, they can't hit at all. They're terrible.
The highest batting average of what I believe looks like starting players here. I don't know. This is very confusing the way they have it organized. Shogo.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It's the.
Yeah, do you know what he batted?
The Asian guy. Probably like
245.
Yeah.
Highest batting average of the starting lineup, batted 245. No, I really like Luis Castillo. I really like Luis Castillo. I like Sonny Gray. I just don't know if I like anybody else on that team. I don't know. It's tough. What is Castellanos? Is he?
Winker hit 255.
Did he? Oh, he did. Okay, they didn't have he wasn't listed in my position player.
He's a D. It says him as DH.
There you go.
But yeah,
right, but so anyways,
that's the guy. I didn't remember his name, but that would have been my guess.
Yeah, so that's.
God, his slugging was under 300. he had 245 with an under 300 slugging. Dude, 1 triple, 6 doubles, and
so we can say that the NL Central has a lot of holes. So you don't need a stud team to win the Central. And
absolutely not. I've said that.
And so but I think the other thing is too, you got to keep in mind that, you know, the Cubs aren't a small market team. If they want to make a splash, they can make a splash, and they can fill in around Rizzo and Baez if they want to. The question is,
guys like Bryant leaving and stuff like that, who's making a boatload in arbitration.
I always do wonder though, when you've got a change of leadership here from Epstein to Hoyer, what the mindset difference will be. Will Hoyer continue what Epstein did and just, or is he going to say, I kind of want to do this my own way? I mean, that's always the tough part that I wonder, and I don't know that there's necessarily an answer. It's just, it'll be interesting to see how the Cubs play it in the next few years, knowing they have a new GM.
I got something to go with you.
Yes.
You said the Reds' highest batting average was 255 after we found out that DH. The Cardinals, if you take out Goldie, who had 304, so obviously they had one stud in Goldie. Their next highest average was 265, who was a free agent in Colton Wong. Their next highest hit 262, who was also a free agent in Yadier Molina. And their next highest hit 250, lower than Jesse Winker, who's our starting everyday shortstop, and Paul DeYoung. Basically, what I'm saying is Cardinals also can't hit. No one can hit in the Central. That's why I said that DeGrom had a closer argument than people thought he did, because the Darvish and Bauer pitched in the Central, and the Central just can't friggin' hit. No one can hit. We all suck. Like you said, Brian sucks too. Everyone sucks.
What's kind of interesting is I just looked this up as well, just for my pure reference. So Cincinnati and the Marlins had the same record this year. The Marlins, of their position players that they have listed, almost all of them batted higher than the highest batting average on Cincinnati. That's pretty crazy. Now you gotta keep in mind that a lot of these guys missed quite a few games, and so they don't have as many at bats and things like that. But it's just interesting. It's just interesting that a team that, like the Marlins, which had pretty good starting pitching and apparently some decent batting averages, comparatively speaking, finished with the exact same win-loss record. So, I mean, I guess that goes down to competition, though. When you're playing different competition, it does make a difference.
Well, both their divisions were pretty equal. And the AL Central was better than the AL East. Not much, though. But
yeah. All right. Well, I don't know. Do you have anything else to talk about baseball?
Minus 41 run differential. Their pitching wasn't that good.
The Marlins?
At 304?
Well, you got to keep in mind that they gave up like 20-something runs to the Braves in that one game. So if you remove that one game, it's not that bad.
Like the Cardinals in two less games, to be fair. But the Cardinals are pitching allowed 70 less, 75 less runs. 75 less runs than Miami.
Yeah. I mean, you got to keep in mind here that the Marlins starting pitchers that were good were not. Pablo Lopez pitched in 11 games. Sandy pitched in 7. Sixto pitched in 7. Eliezer Hernandez pitched in 6. Those were 4 of your best starting pitchers.
How do you pronounce your GM's last name?
The new one?
Yeah.
I've heard it like a million times recently, and I've now blanked.
It's just Ang.
Is it? Sure.
There's a video of her pronouncing her own name on YouTube.
Oh, that's good.
And I wanted to know, and it's just like Ang.
Gotcha.
Ang.
Yeah, I heard it like a million times, but then you put me on the spot, and I totally blanked. Yeah, so I mean, it's just interesting to see how it plays out. There's a lot of variables this season too. I mean, you gotta keep in mind that the Marlins, with their runs given up as well, I mean, they had that 20-something runs that the Braves scored against them, and they had like half their pitching staff was claimed off waivers for like a week. So it's like, they were literally pitching bullpen games with waiver wire bullpen pitchers, and so it was a rough pitching.
Yeah, it's so hard to like figure this stuff out, because if you look at it, you're sitting here, you can say whatever you want about certain teams or certain players and how they pitched or how they performed, and it's over here you're going, a guy like Jack Flaherty, right?
Rough this year.
But was he though? Because he allowed 9 in less than 1 inning pitch. And the rest of the year he had a ball, he had just above a 3.
I don't know. When I watched Jack Flaherty pitch this year, though, something just didn't look right. Like, he didn't look like, I don't know if he was like,
he wasn't
dealing with stuff. Like, he just didn't.
The issue was he was throwing so many pitches because he was not striking people out at the same rate.
Yeah, I just wonder if after the great season he had in 2019, if there was some fatigue carrying over there into 2020.
I think he'll be fine overall because he's still obviously 25.
Yeah, and I don't know that long term there's any issues. I think that there definitely seem to be something not quite right with him this year, though. I don't know if it was in his head or in his body, but something wasn't quite there for him in 2020.
He had a weird couple things. So he had a couple starts moved up due to rain the night before, which kind of blows. And he allowed the 9 in less than one in like one. I think it was like literally 2/3. And in a shortened season, that just destroys ERAs.
Yeah.
So I think,
and my opinions of him was based off of what I saw. I don't. A lot of players I throw out their stats. A lot of the players I'm throwing out their stats this year because good or bad, it's hard to say. I mean, look at Christian Yelich this year. The guy was a stud the last 2 seasons before, and he batted like 100 this year.
In his pocket. The only reason he didn't win it was because he broke his ankle or knee the last month of September, and he still almost won it. And
you could have argued he still was the MVP because,
and you're sitting there, and then you're over here, garbage.
Yeah, I don't know.
Horrific.
All right, well, I don't have anything else for baseball. You got anything else? Any final thoughts you want to add here?
Anyone get signed?
No, not really. That's what's kind of crazy is the off season's moving kind of slow, which I guess I'm not really surprised.
Okay, quick thing.
Yes.
Last thing, because the one big talk about the MLB is Francisco Lindor. No really need to discuss it, but where is he going? Is he staying? Or if he's going, where is he going?
Oh, okay. So we can play this little where's he?
Yeah.
That's a tough one. I mean,
we don't need to have a full-on conversation, but where's he going to go?
And I don't mind having the conversation. I think the tough part is that I think that we even addressed it last week is that Lindor would fit on every major league team. And so where he ends up is going to be really, really tough. But I don't know. I don't know. I mean, that's a really hard thing to call. I'm not 100% sure who they're even referencing as like the leaders for that.
There really isn't one.
But I wouldn't be surprised to see a team make a play there. I guess, I mean, my first initial thought is, that it's going to be a team that wants to make a big splash this year. So I wouldn't be surprised if somebody like, the Mets somehow pull it out of their pocket, but I don't know if they have the players to get him. And so then
they don't, because
then
when you traded all their prospects to
so then when you play
Seattle.
into who's got the players, I mean, sure, I love if the Marlins would get him. That would be awesome, but what would I have to give up for? Do I want to give up what I have to give up for him when I truthfully don't really know if I believe the Marlins are ready yet? I think that they had a good shortened season, but I don't think they're ready for a full season.
Oh yeah, shortened season helped them.
So I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Does a Dodgers pull it off, and then they somehow shift some people around, maybe Seager to third or something like that? Do the Dodgers pull it off to replace Turner over at third? I don't know. I mean, that's what's really tough. Is there's a lot of suitors, but what is it that Cleveland's looking for?
All the prospects. So, do you have any team like just one team? And that can include the Indians. What do you think is going?
Oh man. Man. That's a really, really tough.
Yeah, considering everyone's.
I know, and
everyone's called them.
Yeah,
I'm going Cleveland.
You think he's gonna stay?
I mean, I think he'll stay for at least 2.5 months.
Okay, well, I could see that. I could see him staying until the trade deadline. I could see that. Because I think that this offseason is going to move so slow that the trade market doesn't really pick up too.
Yeah. So I think the couple teams that are suitors are one's the Mets, who will struggle. One's the Reds, who have a lot of prospects. The Cardinals and the Dodgers are big. The main reason I say the Cardinals is because the Cardinals and Cleveland have a massive trade history. They've made like 15 trades over the last 15 years or something stupid. From big to small, any of them mattered. It's just crazy, the Cardinals and Cleveland. If it doesn't matter if they're swapping nobodies, they just make trades. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And so that's the only reason why I think the Cardinals are too boring to make a splash, even though Lindor is a guy who would fit in St. Louis very well.
I just can't help but think that the Dodgers, just because they have
won't.
so many pitchers and they've shown they're not afraid to move them. And so I wouldn't be surprised if they try to pull off something crazy like that. But you never know. Maybe they take the foot off the gas.
Cleveland's just trying to rebuild their stock because they can't sign these guys, and they're another team. It's another team like Oakland. They're another team, that just can't spend all the money, and like Tampa that just can't spend all the money all the time. And and they've proved it by trading guys like Bauer and Kluber, and they just still easily survive. Clevenger, who just signed a 2-year deal, but he's losing one of them to Tommy John, and
yeah, I think it'll be very interesting to see where he goes. And a team like the Marlins, who I'd love to see him go to, if the Marlins play it right, they're not going to really do anything until the trade deadline, because you want to see, is this team going to show up and still play? I mean, you're going to obviously, you might add some smaller pieces, but you're really not going to make any big splash until you get to the trade deadline of next season and say, yeah, we're actually a good team, or it's not quite working out like it has in the past.
This is going to be funny. What will the Cardinals, there's a thing, what will the Cardinals do? And it says what they could do: sign George Springer, DJ LeMahieu, and Nelson Cruz as a DH. What they will do: sign Adam Wainwright, Yadier Molina, and Jonathan Scope. And if that isn't textbook Cardinal offseason, I don't know what is.
Absolutely. Except instead of Jonathan Scope, I think I'd put a bullpen arm. Because I think Jonathan Scope doesn't even fit how the Cardinals like players. So we'll see, though.
And he's just not good. But they actually have when I'm going through this thing, what will teams do? And I'm trying to figure out real fast what they're actually like, who do they have Lindor going to? And they actually have him going to sorry, I'm just trying to read everything real quick. They got him going to New York, the Mets.
Oh, interesting. Does it say anything about what the Mets would give up?
Let me see.
So it is interesting. Lindor's another player that
Ahmad Rosario, Andres Jimenez, Brandon Nimmo, or Doc Smith.
Interesting.
Dom Smith. I said Doc Smith. Dom Smith.
Lindor is another guy who did struggle in this shortened season a little bit, but he did play.
Did he?
60 games. He batted 258, and for him that was rough.
Oh yeah, that's rough for him.
I mean, he's a 280 hitter.
Perennial All-Star MVP type of candidate, best shortstop in the game candidate type thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's been top 20.
Let's see what they had the Marlins doing.
Signing toilet paper and
Marlins. What they could do: sign George Springer and DJ LeMahieu. Sounds like the Cardinals. What they will do: sign Pedro Baez and Mike Zunino.
Okay, whatever. That's about what I expected.
Pedro Baez is the veteran bullpen guy from the Dodgers. So that sounds good to me if I'm a Marlin fan who doesn't really have any bullpen that I know of.
And Zunino is a catcher if you don't believe in Alfaro as your catcher. So,
yeah, Zunino is to provide a challenge to the always frustrating Jorge Alfaro.
So that'll be interesting. But even more interesting now at this point is moving on to the NFL and our weekly picks. So last week, Logan finally joined the Get 11 Right. He got 11 right last week, and I dropped down to 9. So that puts
I'm 2 games behind.
That puts I have you at 28 and me at 31. You were 8, 9, and 11. I was 11, 11, 9. So you are down by 3 right now, but there's some tough games on the schedule this week. Starting tomorrow night. I pulled it up right as we were getting ready to record. So, and I noticed that tomorrow night is an interesting game. So Thursday night football this week is
Do you have who I got wrong?
I deleted them. I delete them when we get them wrong. That's how I keep track of things. Perfect. But anyways, I believe we both got the Baltimore Patriots game wrong.
Yes.
The Cardinals beat the Bills. I don't know if I think that we both had the Bills there. I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not 100% sure. Did no? I think you did have the Giants beating the Eagles.
I did.
The Colts beating the Texans. Did you?
Yeah, Titans.
Titans. I mean, yes. I don't think we had that one.
I think I had the Cardinals winning. I had the Texans beating Cleveland as one of my losses. I had the Cardinals beating the Bills as one of my things, which was right. So I think my losses were Baltimore, Houston, and Indy. I believe were my 3 losses.
Yeah, because you kind of gave up on Indy because you kept picking them. Although you like Tennessee, you're a big Tennessee guy.
I didn't give up on Indy. Indy's been really good. They're in first place, right?
Probably they're 6-3.
I mean, they just beat. I mean, them and the Titans are both 6-3, and they just beat the Titans. I think they're in first place.
Well, so 6-3 teams. We got Arizona at the Seahawks tomorrow night. So that's a good game there. That's going to be a really good game, I think. The Seahawks have no defense whatsoever, looking like Swiss cheese out there. They are coming off a loss to a tough Rams defense. And before that, I believe they were on a bye.
Seattle lost to the Bills. They're 0-2.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, they lost to the last 2 good teams that they played.
Yeah,
and they're playing the Cardinals
another
this week.
Really good football team.
They are. I'm excited for this one because DeAndre Hopkins is on my team, and the Seahawks can't stop the pass for anything.
So Seattle's lost 3 of 4.
So I'm excited for this fantasy wise. But who in our Pickem challenge will win between Arizona and the Seahawks here? The Seahawks were brutal last week, man. Anybody that had Seahawks players in fantasy last week pretty much lost because nobody on that team did anything. Although from what I saw on Twitter was that last week was one of the toughest weeks for fantasy players across the board, that a bunch of people underperformed, and I scored the most points in my league. So I don't know. I had a good week last week, so I was good to go. But apparently a lot of people struggled. And I know that Russell Wilson and DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett were all on that struggle bus. So do they continue their struggles or do they beat Arizona here?
I'm going with Arizona riding that Hail Mary to win. I'm riding that train. I think Arizona is a legit Super Bowl contender.
I think Arizona is very good. I do. And I question. I mean, the Seahawks offense right now is playing good. I mean, last week the Rams are just tough. The Rams are just tough. But the Seahawks offense is playing well. But they don't seem to be playing well enough to hang with teams that have good offenses. You know, the Bills beat them, you know, things like that. So the teams that are beating them, I don't know. I think it's gonna be a really good game, but I think I'm gonna agree with you here that Arizona wins this one. I think that when it comes down to it, my deciding factors are almost always in close games are quarterbacks and defenses. Well, the quarterbacks are both good here, and I think Arizona's defense is better. So I think that's
if this was a full normal year, I'm picking Seattle with the fans.
Oh yeah, I mean that's a completely different factor, but it doesn't apply here. Home team really doesn't have the advantage here.
All right, Arizona.
All right, so the next game is actually kind of an interesting one because it's the Patriots at the Texans, and the Patriots have they bounced back a little bit last week. I don't think we expected that. I think we actually, that might have been one of the ones that was a surprise there that the Patriots won last.
Yeah, they beat Baltimore.
Yeah, that was definitely a surprise for us. We weren't expecting that by any means. And so the question is, do they carry that momentum here? Whoops, I accidentally clicked off here. In this week against the Texans.
So I went big on the Texans last week in my upset prediction, and they bent me over. But do I trust Super Cam? No,
I never trust him.
I trust Bill, and I'm gonna go with the Patriots this week, even though they're on the road in Houston, because if Houston couldn't win a 10-7 game against Cleveland, I don't really have that much faith in them beating Bill Belichick and the Patriots.
You know what? As much as I want to disagree because I love Deshaun Watson, Bill Belichick is known for his coaching style is whatever the other team does best, we're going to stop that and make them play around that. And the problem is the entire Texans offense runs around Deshaun Watson. So if you stop Deshaun Watson, there's nothing left to that team at all.
Exactly.
So I don't see them pulling this one out either.
Yeah, he takes your best offensive weapon and takes them away. Well, he doesn't have to worry about the best offensive weapon because they're all garbage or not good enough to worry that much about. So
here is a turd game of the week.
I love this game.
Eagles at Browns.
Oh, that game. I thought you were talking about another one. Third game of the week.
This to me,
I chose the first two.
So this one is interesting because Cleveland's record, you would think, oh, this is easy. Cleveland's 6-3. The Eagles suck. They're all hurt. But then they came out last week and barely beat the Texans. And I don't know, man. Cleveland looks terrible, and so do the Eagles. But I don't know. The Browns have Chubb and Hunt.
And Jarvis.
Yeah, I mean, Jarvis hasn't done much for them. And the Eagles, I mean, they've got a lot of their players back now. I don't know, man. I don't know that I trust the Browns here. The Browns have been playing pretty poorly. And so I feel like this is going to be a Browns collapse here. I think the Browns are pulling a Bears and they're collapsing. And I'm going to go Eagles.
I'm going to go Browns.
There we go.
I don't have any faith in the Eagles.
So if let's say you were a big time Eagles fan, and maybe if you knew a big time Eagles fan or a wannabe big time Eagles fan, I'm not really sure. Let's say you knew one and you were giving them some advice. Well, what might you advise that team? I know you
advise the person or the team.
Him about his team. How about that?
I would advise him anything because he's a stubborn shithead and I love him to death. But
I know you're not a big believer in Carson Wentz. That's what we're getting at here.
I'm not a big believer in Carson Wentz, but he's not the problem 100% the problem this year. I mean, he's throwing an absolute crap load of picks because he just has to force the ball all the time because they're trying to come back. So you're going to throw a lot of picks when your team's not that good and you have to come back. You throw a lot of late picks, stuff like that. So he's turning the ball over at an incredible rate, but last year, I thought they were good enough to do good things, and he was not good at all. And then after I kind of talked to you and Brandon about how he was really just bad at football, and I don't know what they want to do, he then all of a sudden played really well for 6 weeks in a row after everyone in the world said Nick Foles is the better player in Philadelphia, and they shouldn't have traded Nick Foles to Jacksonville. But I don't know. I don't think Wentz is the problem. The problem is they're dead. I wouldn't say.
I think the Eagles' big problem that they've had every single year, regardless of Carson Wentz, there's two big problems they've had. Their team can never stay healthy. Their best players are always hurt, whether it be Wentz or people in his offense, and the fact that their wide receivers are terrible. Wentz's biggest threats to pass to are tight ends. It's like, man, tight ends are cool to pass to and all, but when you have no one else on the team to pass the ball to, you're not going to gain a lot of yards only throwing to your tight end.
So people thought it was cool to try to copy the Patriots on not doing anything big with receivers and still just throwing for a crap ton of yards. And then they realized after a certain point that even Brady couldn't do that anymore. and then they realized, and then they watched the Chiefs draft 3 receivers in a draft and they already had Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce and Sammy Watkins, and they still took 3 of their 7 picks were receivers, and then 2 of them were studs, and then both Watkins and Hill got hurt, and they survived. And all of a sudden people went, man, stacking receivers is a good idea, especially when you're in a quarterback league that just throws the ball all the time. You're
and now the rules don't let you hit anybody, and I mean, it's an offensive league.
Which is good, because some of those things are trying to murder people. But all of a sudden, the Chiefs came out saying, yeah, having a good amount of receivers in a league where you throw the ball 45 times a game seems to be a smart strategy. And everyone else went, that's a good idea. But the problem is the Eagles are spending a boatload of money on Alshon Jeffrey, who's old and hurt. And then they're signing guys like Deshaun Jackson, who has been terrible for 5 years. And then they draft a 5'10" receiver out of a D2 school and leave DK Metcalf to fall to the end of the second round. They literally took like the 7th or 8th best receiver in the first round.
Jefferson, the wide
It's like,
receiver.
why? It just didn't make any sense. I mean, if you hit, you look like a genius, but man, you look like an idiot when that guy is just not that good. And your best receiver is an ex-quarterback playing receiver. So I don't know. Wentz is not the problem. I think it's just a struggle. I think
it's a poorly built team.
When you're this hurt, and they're the second most hurt team in the NFL.
They're getting players back though. They've got Goddard back. They've got Sanders back. They've got some options.
Hurts and Jeffrey.
Yeah,
and that's big. But,
all right. Well, this next game, I don't know. I don't know if maybe you're feeling upset city here. Maybe you're going to take the road like I did last week and fail miserably. Pittsburgh at the Jaguars.
Pittsburgh, dude, 10-0. I'm not even looking at it.
I will not bet against that again. I thought there was going to be a chance that Joe Burrow was going to pop off. And I'm going to be a little bit honest here. I was being a little bit shady because I knew Big Ben was on the COVID list and had a possibility to not play.
Oh, I know.
And so I was hoping he wouldn't play, and then I would get that pick there because we saw how bad Pittsburgh is without him. And so I was kind of hoping there, but Juju ended up having a good week for me, so that was big.
You know what's really funny about that is going into like the middle of the second quarter, I believe the Bengals were winning that game.
Yeah, so I was hoping for a couple things there. It just didn't work out. But so I'm not betting against it again here. The Jaguars are not even their starting quarterback, and
you were like, the Steelers are down for a bad week, and I go, yeah, it's not happening, dude. Not against this team.
I just thought maybe Joe Burrow might just pop off. Sometimes he does that.
Rivals get to play rivals close, no matter how good or bad they are, right? So it was definitely not the worst. It was definitely the better upset pick you could have taken because rivals play rivals.
This next one, I wonder how long you're going to stick with it. It is the Lions at the Panthers.
Didn't I give up on the Lions last week, or did I go with the Lions last week? Let me see what they did.
Lions last week. They played Washington.
And did they lose?
They won. They won, yeah. Barely though.
I chose the Lions.
Yeah, barely.
I'm definitely gonna jump off the Lions train right now for this game because I believe Carolina's played 2 really good games in a row and lost them both. If I'm correct.
Christian McCaffrey's still not playing. They just got murdered.
Assaulted by Tom Brady. I forgot about that.
And Christian McCaffrey's still not playing. So.
Yeah, but he's not playing.
But they do have Carolina favored to win.
Screw it. I'll just jump on my Lions, dude. I said they were gonna.
Yeah, you can't jump off the board yet. Come on now. Yeah, you gotta stick with it, man. Because
a little longer. This might be the last. If they fail me this week, then I'll probably be hopping off the train. But I'll give them one more week.
I think what's his face? Teddy Bridgewater is also questionable for this game too. So. I don't know. I think I got to go Detroit in this one also. So I guess technically by Google or whatever, we're picking the underdog in that one. So by picking the 4-5 Lions. All right. So a 2-win matchup here. The Bengals at Washington. I think the Bengals are a much better team. Washington's running back situation, they're pretty much the only good players on the team. And then both running backs are doing really well. And then they have one receiver.
He's freaking
he's so good. I mean, the fact that he is as good as he is with the quarterbacks he has is phenomenal. But I think the Bengals just have more here. And so I think the Bengals are going to win this one.
We're going to disagree.
Ooh.
We're going to disagree. I'm going to go Washington.
Okay.
For the sole purpose of I am kind of a believer in Washington, and not that I think they're going to be good, but just I think they're not that bad. Do we know who's playing quarterback for them this week?
I don't know. Does it matter?
Is it going to be Alex Smith in another start? Because he had a really, really, really good second half last week.
And I would assume he's probably going to be.
And if Alex Smith is starting, that's why I'm going to Alex Smith, is because they're going to be better than what they've been. I think Cincy should be favored, and they probably are the better team. But
Well, it does seem like
Alex Smith threw
too.
for 300, almost 400 yards in his first start after his leg broke in half like 2 years ago.
The Washington
The Washington football team.
the Washington football team has done a pretty good job lately at making sure their real weapons are getting the ball. So their 2 running backs and their wide receiver are getting the bulk of the offense. And so they're putting the ball in the playmakers' hands. So that's always a better recipe than just getting murdered all the time.
Yep.
So this is an interesting game. The records don't say it, but the Falcons at Saints. This is an interesting game because the Saints still have a good defense. The Falcons have a underperforming offense, and Drew Brees is hurt. And
I think the Falcons have a top 10 offense.
And famous Jameis is starting this game. He is starting this game for New Orleans against the Falcons. This is an interesting matchup because Jameis Winston is known for losing games. He is known for giving them away, but the Falcons' defense is terrible.
4 touchdowns, but also having 4 turnovers.
The Falcons' defense is also terrible. The other thing that's interesting about this too is how much is Jameis Winston gonna use Alvin Kamara? Because Winston's not known for throwing little check down passes to his running back. He's known for just chucking the ball towards the end zone.
Well, he's got the same style of offense that Brady's now playing, and that Brady played in New England. What New England did throw a lot of checkdowns, but Brady threw that mid to deep ball a lot, especially that mid-range ball. And it's kind of Jameis's style, but that's not who the Saints are. The Saints throw the ball either really deep or really short. They don't throw 15-yard balls.
Yeah, so
I know of. I could look like an idiot, but I know what they did last year, and that was not like throw 7-yard balls all the time. And hey, if you complete a 7-yard ball 75% of the time, like Breeze does, not a bad strategy. It's not a bad strategy, so.
Yeah, I mean, I think Jameis Winston makes this interesting here. I've heard a lot of people in fantasy are actually taking Taysom Hill and playing him because in a lot of leagues he's eligible at tight end. And so then you could get his rushing yards, you could get his passing yards, and if he catches anything. So he's got ways to get you points if he ends up coming into the game. I don't either, but they love him. They love him, and they get him in all kinds of funky plays, and you never know what he might do, and tight ends are terrible this year.
They might be 8-1 if Sean Payton decided not to do stupid stuff and take Drew Brees off the field so often in the fourth quarter of a game they lost.
Well, there's something to be said for that. So the question here, though, is Jameis Winston going to win this game?
Yes. Nolans.
I
think Jameis Winston will do fine with Sean Payton and their team. I actually think that Jameis being a backup will drastically help him on these spot starts. I think he's actually going to play really well, and then people are going to come out saying, should Jameis be the starter? No. The answer is no, but I think he's going to play really well.
I don't know, man. There's a large part of me that's saying pick the Falcons here, but the Saints defense is pretty good. And the Falcons are just known for blowing games they should win. I guess I got to go New Orleans here. I mean, they're just the better football team regardless of who's playing quarterback. It could be Taysom Hill playing the entire game, and I still think they got a good shot in this game. So
if they were starting Taysom Hill, I'd Falcons by 30.
All right, so now this is another good game here. The Titans at the Ravens.
This is the last noon game. So this is a cool game. Really cool game. Both these teams just lost games they probably should have won, especially Baltimore. So that's what makes this game very interesting because Baltimore is now tied for second place with Cleveland and pretty much out of winning the division now, being 3 games out of Pittsburgh. I mean, they're pretty much done. And they only play each other one more time the rest of the year. So it's going to be so difficult for Baltimore to win this division. So they got to worry about getting that 5 seed more than winning the division right now. And Tennessee's in the same thing. They're tied for first place with a team that just kicked their absolute ass in front of the whole world. So that makes this a little more interesting. I'm trying to think here who I would want to go with. So I don't know if you have anything to say about this game, but this is
I don't know why, but all of last year and all of this year, regardless of what their record says, I don't like Tennessee. I don't know why, but I just don't think they're good, and yet they keep winning. And that's I think it's because it's Ryan Tannehill. And I just don't think he's a good quarterback. And I don't know why.
You hand it to a freaking god.
Well, there's something to be said for that. But I'm going Ravens here. I don't like the Titans. So.
I predicted the Titans to beat Baltimore as a 6th seed last year in Baltimore after Baltimore went 14-2.
So you're picking Baltimore.
Titans again.
I thought you were gonna hit me with the hot turn.
No, I picked the Titans to win last year.
We got a few matchups here. Hey, you know what? You got to make up 3 games, so you gotta differentiate from my picks here.
We got plenty of time to make up 3 games. If I'm even gonna make them up at all, I got to go with my gut. I think the Titans are gonna win this game because I like the Titans.
So here
Derrick Henry was a 4th round pick, idiots.
So here is
he's too slow for the league, by the way. Derrick Henry went in the 4th round because he's too slow for the league. He's got 2 99-yard touchdowns. Anyway,
this is not an interesting game by any means, but it's an interesting game for me because
I know what you're going to talk about.
Justin Herbert is my fantasy quarterback, and he gets to play against the Jets here.
Yep.
So that's going to be big for my fantasy team. Mm-hmm. The decision I have to make, though, that's less important because it really doesn't matter that much, is at tight end. Am I playing Hunter Henry or am I going to play Hurst from Atlanta? Hurst has been the better fantasy tight end this year, but, I mean, somebody's going to catch all these passes against the Jets. And I know that the Chargers have a lot of mouths to feed that, I don't know, make big plays, but I don't know. I mean, I feel like everybody's going to be open in this game, so you never really know. I mean, I definitely taking the Chargers in this game. There's no doubt about that. I think the Jets don't want to win games, so. But I don't know. I have that tough fantasy decision to make, though. That's kind of my tough decision this week.
I am picking the Jets.
Whoa.
I'm picking the Jets for one reason. One. And do you know what that reason is?
Because LaDainian Tomlinson played his last year of his career there.
Because Justin Herbert cut all of his hair. Going Jets.
Why would he do that?
He cut his luscious locks. He now has gross hair. He doesn't look good.
What is this? Hold on. Justin Herbert haircut.
Looks bad.
Haircut. Oh,
he looks bad. He looks bad.
Oh,
I'm
no.
going in the way of Pat McAfee. Way of Pat McAfee. Look good, feel good, play good, pay good, live good, die good. He doesn't look good. So he's not going to play good. Jets are winning the game.
Oh, my goodness. That's a heartbreaker. I'm about to bench him in my
hot
fantasy
take
team.
of the week. He looks bad. The quarterback got a bad haircut. I'm taking the Jets.
I think Justin Herbert is the quarterback from this draft. I think
him and Joe Burrow are really balling out. I really like that these 2 rookies are walking in balling out. I think he is. I think he definitely could be too, even though I was really down on him going into the draft, and a lot of people were. And then there were some people saying that the only reason Herbert's even going to be taking the first round is because he's white. Yeah, he told all those guys. He gave all those guys the middle fingers real quick. But legitimately not looking into it at all. The Chargers are the better team. Jets are winning this game because
of a haircut.
Herbert got a bad haircut.
All right. So speaking of good quarterbacks who were drafted, we have the Miami at Broncos. So Tua has won all 3 games he started.
Has he started 3 games?
Or 2 games? I don't know. Whatever. He started.
He
won all his games.
In one of those games, he threw for under 100.
He did. His defense won him that game, but he is showing he is a winning quarterback. So
I'm going Miami. I'm all aboard the
I
Drew Lock is going to take 3 weeks off for throwing a touchdown again. He threw like 3 touchdowns week 1, then took like 5 weeks in between touchdown passes. Then he threw 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter 2 weeks ago, and then he didn't throw a touchdown last week, and he's not going to throw any this week either. All aboard. The Drew Lock is a 4 touchdown or bust type of guy. Miami.
I am all aboard the I don't know if I necessarily agree with this witchcraft that you're spitting here, but I think Miami's defense is too good for the Broncos offense.
I think Miami.
And I think Miami wins. All right, so teams with
Brian Flores is the NFL Coach of the Year.
Hot take, maybe not so hot, but
I don't even think that's that hot after what he did last year, and now they're 6-3 already. I mean, they win 9 games. He's probably the Coach of the Year, right? I mean, and they make the playoffs.
Could be. So this game is somewhat interesting.
I mean, Pittsburgh is 9-0.
The Packers at Colts.
I know, dude.
The Packers are 7-2. The Colts are 6-3. The Colts are looking better, and my pick.
Colts are looking good.
My original pick was that the Packers were obvious, but then now I'm reading this and it's saying Indy is favored to win. So now I'm a little bit torn. But I feel like Aaron Rodgers, when he's on, he wins the big games during the regular season. It's against a winning team. So I consider it a big game.
But it's not really a national television.
Yeah, but I think it's a big game because they don't want to be 7-3, and they don't want the Colts to be 7-3. I don't know. I think it's interesting. I think that anytime teams that have good records play each other, I consider it somewhat of a big game. And I think Aaron Rodgers shows up this week. They had a tough week last week, didn't they? No,
they slaughtered.
No, they won 24. The Packers
2 weeks ago they slaughtered San Fran, and then 3 weeks ago they got absolutely assaulted by the Bucs.
So last week they played the 1-8 Jaguars, and they won 24-20. Very close game. Their offense didn't show up at all that game.
Indy went into Tennessee on Thursday night last week and just dominated. So they're.
But I think Aaron Rodgers bounced back here, and I think Green Bay wins this game.
I'm going Indianapolis. I'm on the Indianapolis. I'm on the Indianapolis is good train. I really am.
I don't know. Everything I saw from Phillip Rivers in San Diego makes me think that Phillip Rivers.
I was forgetting their quarterback. I was aboard the Indiana. Like I was on board of picking them to win last week, but I just like the Titans so much that I constantly pick them. And I was all aboard to say the Colts are going to win because they're 6-2 after losing to the Jaguars week 1. Yikes. And so I'm literally taking that week 1 off their record, so I'm counting them as 6-2. And I just think they're a good team and they're the best defense in the NFL. They got Darius Leonard, who's a god. So I'm going to go with the Indianapolis Colts.
So this next game on paper is not a challenging pick'em, but I just want it to be known that when the Vikings win this week, they will have won 4 straight since I said they were going to turn it around.
Yep.
And that's going to be my triumph of this season, I think. I'm definitely taking Minnesota here, obviously.
I'm also taking Minnesota here.
But I do think it's interesting that currently the Vikings are now tied with the Lions as far as record. They're both 4-5. So your team that you said was going to perform is now even with the team that I said was going to perform.
But my team's 1-2, your team's 3-0.
Exactly. So my take was I was a good take here.
And Minnesota also beat Green Bay and Chicago in Chicago, so
but it's nice. So we're both taking Minnesota.
I'm bragging on you because those are 2 of 500 teams.
It was a good take. It was a good take there. This one should be interesting because you did talk about in division, and it is the Chiefs at the Raiders. They do match up several times, it seems like, throughout the season, being in the same division. So I mean, this is always hard to know what's going to show up because last time they played, it was a pretty good game. And so, I mean, that's kind of what you had mentioned, that in division games are always pretty good. So the question is, yeah, do we see another one of these good games, and do we see a team being the Raiders pulling it out of their buttocks?
So the Raiders already beat the Chiefs.
Yeah, I was trying to find a score there.
40-32. Raiders have their Chiefs' only loss.
So the Raiders are the only loss for the Chiefs.
And the Chiefs are going to assault them, especially with the Raiders' defense having COVID. So
rip.
They're losing a bunch of players right now due to COVID. The Chiefs are going to avenge sevenfold their loss, and they're going to. I think they're going to win. I don't really see any. I don't see the Chiefs losing twice to the same team in a season. I don't think they would do that to any team.
I guess the only thing you could ask is, do you? My thought would be, looking at it, the only way the Raiders would win is if you said, I think the Raiders figured out something that beats the Chiefs. But they gave up a bunch. They gave up a bunch of points. They just happened to score more that game. I feel like the Chiefs are more likely to figure out the Raiders than the Raiders are to figure out the Chiefs.
I think Patrick Mahomes is more, when playing a team twice the second time, I think he's got a nice chance of dropping 50 on them. So
yeah. So I'm also gonna go KC.
And since they lost the first game, it's a little different.
So the Monday night game. This might be, I don't know. This might be the best Monday night game of the year. I feel like the Monday night games have been kind of lame this year. So this Rams at Tampa Bay is a very interesting game because the Buccaneers are a very strong offensive team. The Rams defense has been lights out. So is Tom Brady going to get enough out of his offense to beat out the Rams, whose offense hasn't been all that great, it seems like, but their defense is definitely showing up. And that's that. I mean, this is a tough game. This is a tough call here.
It is, especially after Tampa just beats up Green Bay, but then gets beat up by Nolans.
So, I mean, the question is,
Tampa's
do you think
7-1 against anybody not quarterbacked by Drew Brees?
But the question is, do you think that beating up by New Orleans was also defensive based, and that when the Buccaneers play a really strong defense, maybe they don't perform? I mean, there's a lot of variables to this. A lot of variables.
I mean, that's kind of true, though, because their losses are to the Saints, who have a really good defense, and the Bears,
who have a good defense.
The
Bears were playing, and the Bears were obviously playing better than they are now.
Well, the Bears have pretty much done the same thing all year. Is now instead of scoring 20 points a game, they're scoring like 12 points a game. So
yeah,
their defense has done the exact same thing all whole year. But
I think I'm gonna go Rams.
I'm also going to go Rams. I've chosen too many. I've chosen a lot of risky picks this week. I don't.
Well, so Tampa Bay is favored
being risky at all anyway, because you could easily choose both these teams to win.
Well, and that's where it's tough, is because if my tiebreakers were quarterback, Tom Brady's my quarterback, but then my other tiebreaker is defense, and the Rams defense is way better. So who do I think is better, the Rams defense or Tom Brady? And I think at this point in this game, the defense is better than Tom Brady. I think that's what it's
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if Brady walked out there and put 35 up and won this game, but
I think this is more like a
it's gonna be a packed stadium,
21-17 or something.
I don't know, dude. In Tampa, it's gonna be probably near full capacity because Florida just doesn't give a crap about COVID. On Monday night, it'd be probably pretty. I could see them scoring a lot of points. I'm still going Rams though.
We'll see. I think the big kicker here is the Rams offense going to show up at all? Because the Rams offense likes to just disappear sometimes.
Also, Brady hasn't had a bye yet, so those boys might be getting tired.
That's true too.
Because pretty much everybody's had a bye this year except for like them and Carolina or something like that. I think everyone's had a bye besides them, and theirs are next week.
Yeah, so I think that's going to be a tough one, but we both went with the Rams, so either way, it won't really matter in the end because it'll just even out. But it'll be a good game. It'll be fun to watch.
We had some different picks this week.
We did. We had a lot of varying picks there. I don't even know if that's a word. But yeah, we've got some good variety on the board here, I think.
Jets by 100.
Wow. That is a bold prediction here.
Anything else happen in football?
Not that I know of. Nothing major. I don't think that a lot of the active inactive stuff's come about. Christian McCaffrey's not playing. That's all I know.
My through 10 weeks coach of the year is Miami.
True. Hot takes.
My defensive player of the year is I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that kind of stuff.
And my MVP is probably I'm probably gonna go Patty, but people can say Russell Wilson. He's got 9 more picks than Patrick Mahomes, so I don't really know.
All right. So that's football. On to a very, very, very busy Overwatch League signings. Lots and lots of them. Like more than I feel like reading. There was a ton. Some of the major stuff was mostly just the Spark basically refilling their lineup after releasing a bunch of people. Exy to the Dallas Fuel. If I didn't say that last week, it is official now. The NYXL, the team that was absolutely studded season 1 of Overwatch League, has released 3 of their players. CBLB was like their team captain, and some people argue best tracer in the world. And then they also got rid of Libero and somebody else.
Anyone call him the best tracer in the world anymore?
Well, they were saying that CBLB was
or striker anyway.
But I mean, their team was very, very good season 1. And so to see them seeing them parting ways with some of their players is interesting. But I mean, as far as this year goes, it's not really surprising. I mean, it seems to be happening across the board. Shanghai signed a marginal, decently good DPS and Erster. I guess they're trying to fill some voids there. I feel like he's very similar to another player they have that I'm blanking on his name. But it should be interesting to see how that goes. But I know you've been crying about it for however long we've been doing this podcast, 3 weeks now. But the Houston Outlaws are finally rumored to be making some moves. So the Houston Outlaws are expected to sign Happy and Nero. So Happy is regarded as like top tier DPS, hard carry DPS. Happy makes you happy.
Absolutely, he makes me happy.
It should be interesting. So the interesting part though about the other half of this possible signing here, Nero, this guy, I saw him tweeting the other day, basically sarcastically saying Overwatch is fun right now, and then he posted like the little like, oh, fact checkers say this is not true, like as like he like copied and pasted that under his tweet about Overwatch is fun.
Official sources.
Yeah, which I don't know if that gives me a big vote of confidence on my new player that he even wants to play the game. But I mean, it's interesting because I feel like Overwatch. This really, I mean, I think it does apply to Overwatch League though. Because Overwatch League has had more players retiring than like hardly any other esports. Like the amount of most esports do not see the numbers of people that are being paid contracted players quitting because they're sick of a game. And it's just like, I love Overwatch. You love Overwatch, but we play it in a much more
casual.
Yeah. And like in smaller doses. It seems like the people that truly hate the game, but are still playing all the time are the ones that just grind and grind and grind and grind. They play the game until they hate it. I mean, they literally burn themselves out and then play for another 2 years. It's like to me, it's like play a different game. If you're hating it that much, why torture yourself? Like play it in moderation and have fun with it. I don't understand why create so much toxicity around a game because you've played it so much that you hate it. And then it's just like, I don't know what people expect. I mean, I don't know. Everyone's like, oh my god, they keep breaking the game by buffing and nerfing. It's like they're trying to change what heroes you can play that are the best
They're also
because they
trying to
don't want
find
you
a
getting
good
sick of it.
balance.
It's like everyone's like, oh, Overwatch is at the best place it can be. Oh, let's nerf or let's buff Brigitte, and like mocking when they gave Brigitte a buff and then I guess are taking it away again. But it's like, they have to make changes to these people, otherwise the game gets stale. But then
Everyone
you're also
complained when they didn't update the game for a year.
yeah, and so it's like
Now they're ripping out quick updates, and then clearly they're going to change it quickly because no one was really complaining about the Genji meta that hard, and they changed that quickly because they just want to see usage numbers. And when usage rates go really high for one character, they say, okay, well, maybe let's make a change to that character. They just don't want to see. It's done a lot in Pokemon tier lists on like how good Pokemon are, usage percentage. And that's what they don't want to see. When Genji was good, his usage was crazy high. And that meant either the game was broken and the fact the character was broken, that he was being used so much because his ult and everything he was doing was so good, or it was not really or. It's just they need to find a way to find usage to where every player has a certain within a range of usage for every character. And when they break that usage, they want to fix it because they don't want characters used 0.1% of the time. And so that's what happens. Brigitte got buffed. Their usage went through the roof. So they dipped her again. And that's how they do it. They don't do it just all straight for competitive. They do it for pubs as well. They want a usage percentage. And then all of a sudden, when every single game loads up with a Genji in it, that's not what the devs want. Or every game loads up with a Reinhardt in it, that's not what the devs want. That's just what was happening.
Well, and that's what's tough too, is on that same note, everyone's like, oh my god, Overwatch doesn't put out new content. They don't make new characters. They don't make new maps. They don't. And it's like, okay, but you're also complaining about balance all the time. So if all you're doing is complaining about balance, the best way to throw off the balance is put in a whole new character. It's like if you feel like the balance is struggling that much, how are they going to add a new character when they don't have a game that's balanced? And I think the frustrating part to me,
characters come out with crazy kits as well.
Right.
Like the characters tend to have better kits than characters that released with the game. People like Ashe and Sigma's got a god tier kit, probably like the best kit in the game when it comes to, he has a stun rock that he can break up any ult with. He also can heal himself with his accretion or whatever it's called.
Yep.
And then his ult 50% everybody who hits the floor in it, no matter how much.
And with good team play, easy kills.
Exactly, and that's why a person like Zen is used or BAP were used, so they could save themselves from Sigma's ult. That's why they were used, to save themselves from Sigma's ult. And then Ana's kit was pretty crazy when they released her. It's just they always overkit these new guys. So to say I want a new character but keep the game balanced, the new character release is overkitted every time. And then they have to, and then the character gets used like crazy. Echo was used like no one had ever seen because you could get ult so fast when you took over as the character, using her ult and taking over Reinhardt or something. And it broke the game for quick play and stuff like that. It's just, anyways, you can go back. I just wanted to say that new characters get overkitted and break the game. And then people complain about balance, but they want new characters.
Right. I think you're right on with that one. And I think that the biggest complaint that I've been hearing a lot lately is that they feel like Overwatch in general, that the rank system is broken, like that the rank system is terrible in Overwatch. But I don't know if these people that play Overwatch have ever played ranked in other games. To me, Overwatch's rank system is no different than any other game. Every other game I've ever played with ranked, you always have kids that are throwing. You always have kids that are like not playing with the team. You've always got Smurfs. That's in every single game that has a ranked play. There is nothing different about their ranked play than any other game. And the only thing that's different is Overwatch League is expected to play more team-based. And when you don't at the higher levels, your team is going to lose. And that is what is tough. But at the same time, this is the hardest fact that most people cannot face is if you are truly better than the rank you're playing at, you will rank out of it. That is the hardest fact people don't accept. Now, Do I believe that like you and I are better than our ranks? I do, but I know that I'm at those ranks because I don't play enough to get out of it. I don't play enough games to get out of my rank. I'm lucky if I play more than my placement matches in a season. Like, I think that I can play at a higher level because I've played with people that are, I mean, I know a guy back when I used to stream and I was like a low bronze. I had lost so many games of tank. Now looking back, it's funny because at the time when I was playing those tank games, I thought I was doing it right. I thought I was playing a really strong tank. I think back to how I played. I know it was terrible. I know that I was terrible. And I ended up, and I dropped down to like 800 SR, which is unbelievably low. I met people down there, tried to win games. I slowly got myself back up to even be able to play with Logan. There is a kid that I played with down in that low rank that now plays, you know, he is a, I don't know, like a platinum level player and like plays, you know, does like scrims and stuff with lower end teams that play in small tournaments. But it's like myself was playing at the same level as somebody that was down there who managed to work and get better and play up in those levels. But I guarantee you the way he played when he was down there and the way he plays now is not at all the same. If you want to move up, get better at the game. And the other difference, here's the big thing. And I actually have played 3 or 4 placement matches in the last couple days. I just decided to hop on. I said, you know what? I've been playing kind of a hot Zenyatta. Let's just see what happens. I think I'm 2-1 or 2-2. And every single game I've been in, I think one game we rolled the other team. The other 3 were really close games. We lost. We literally had a first. It was a control, I think. I don't know. Is control like the King of the Hill game? I always blank on what they're actually called.
Same, dude.
I don't know. Whatever the one where it's got a center point and you try and capture it. I always blank on their actual names. But we were playing that and we were up 99 to like 20. And they ended up coming back and winning that point 100 to 99. Do you know what happened as soon as we went into that lobby to the next like point? Whole team started arguing with each other about who was doing bad, who was doing this. We need more DPS. We need better tanks. We need more healing. It's like, shut up. Worry about how you're playing. If you leave a ranked game and say, I feel like I played pretty well that game, that should be enough. Worry about how you are playing. Yes, you want to win. Yes, you want your rank to go up. But more importantly, you need to look at and say, how did I play? Was there ways that I could have played better? I try now, and don't get me wrong, I'm playing at a much lower mental level. Like, I'm not trying to be the best like a lot of people are that are stressing about it. And I'm not playing as often as these people. But I look at it like every time I die, the first thing I think is, what was I doing and could I played it differently? You know, what? And I try to think every single time I died, was I in the right spot? Did I cause my own death? Because if I blame the tanks, if I blame the DPS, I can do that every single game. It doesn't matter if we win or lose. I can always blame someone on my team for not carrying their weight. You can always blame somebody. When I'm Zenyatta and I'm gold damage, I can blame all the damage dealers I want. I can. But here's the thing I also noticed. There was a game that actually was happening. So we were struggling, one of the games that we lost, and I was gold damage for a while. And at first, I didn't say anything. I just watched these people in chat complain, say, "Oh, these people aren't doing this. These people aren't doing that." And I almost typed. I go, "Well, I'm gold and damage as Zenyatta," and I was like going back and forth gold healing with a Baptiste. And I almost said something, but then I was like, you know what though? I am like 6-5 right now. I'm gold damage, but I'm not finishing any of these people I'm hurting. I'm not headshotting them and bursting them down. I'm not killing these people. So I can't say anything. Yes, I'm gold and damage, great. But think about how big in Overwatch, if all of a sudden that damage that I was putting in becomes a kill, how much bigger that is than just laying in damage. Yes, laying in damage is great for team play and everybody can capitalize to it. But man, if I really want to say I'm doing everything I could, well, then I should have been hitting those headshots and killed that guy and gave us the 6-on-5, not just laying in damage and being golden damage.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what I thought about. I almost said something about being golden damage, but I was like, man, you know what? I'm thinking about how I just played, and I am not killing people. I'm just doing damage. I'm hitting the tanks with damage and they're not dying. It's getting healed back up. I'm missing their DPS every time I try and shoot shots at them. And I'm not really doing anything more than supplementing damage. I just happen to be hitting people more than anyone else is.
Just building ults, yeah.
Yeah, and so really, I mean, it's almost like, and don't get me wrong, I mean, general gamers are younger than us, but it's like there's a maturity that's not there, and people are not willing to accept that they are making mistakes, so they blame other people, which creates a toxic community, and all you ever see on Twitter is that Overwatch is dead or that Overwatch is terrible. And it hurts me because I love the game. I love playing Overwatch. And now, like we've said before, I don't have a ton of hours. I have a good amount for me, but like I can't stick with one thing for very long. But it hurts to hear people say that it's not a good game when, I mean, Overwatch really stepped out and did a game that nobody else was doing. I mean, they created something that really didn't exist and made a really good game doing it. And then to have people say that it's not good hurts my feelings. That's my rant about Overwatch.
The game's good. People overreact and say it's dead. The game's toxic. Every game's toxic, especially in a game that involves a lot of teamwork. We don't really deal with too much toxicity because we're low. Like we're in like we're in the lower middle tiers. Like we're in the middle of the lower tiers and like the upper silvers, low golds. But I can guarantee the second you start hitting like 3,400, 3,300, everyone's constantly blaming everybody. And that's what you got to say. It's like, I realize that too. Like I could easily, as a McCree, right? When I came back to the game after taking a really long break, just like Jason did, me, my buddy Brandon, and Jason all of a sudden started playing the game a lot and started grinding ranked, and all of our ranks just skyrocketed. We were all gaining, like Jason's DPS gained like 600 SRs, tank gained like 1,200 SR. My DPS went from like low bronze to really high. My tank honestly kind of stayed the same, and my healing like jumped, like got really hot, like, you know, even to like 2,200 in gold or something like that. Like, and we're not good at the game, but we can have fun and see our improvements. But when I started playing the game most recently, I realized when I was McCree, if I wanted gold damage, I could get gold damage no matter what anyone wanted to do, period. Because I could just mow a hog for 1,000 damage and never kill him. And I could do it so fast to where I could get 1,000 damage, because I'm not going to miss that many times because it's a roadhog.
Right,
he can
huge.
heal himself, and then he can be healed obviously very easily just by his healers, his supports. And I could just rip 1,000 damage before anyone could even realize, man, this guy went from having 1,000 damage total to 2,500, and people are just like, well, what do you even do? I didn't even kill anybody. It's just like Jason said, he was 6 and 5. He was gold damage, but most of it clearly was useless because he was 6 and 5. Like, you need to get picks, and that's kind of one thing that I learned most recently going back to the game that I can guarantee would actually make me a lot better now if I went to play, is, especially with the amount of Overwatch I watched, it's just getting that first or second pick and then having good communication with your team to go, 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 go. Let's get 2 more. And then if we're at a 5-on-2 or whatever we are, we're going to win 99.9% of the time, and we're going to move the card a lot, or we're going to take the point, or whatever it is. You're going to dominate that section. So, and just kind of going in that way. So it's just learning the game a little bit more. Super said it on stream, and he says it all the time. He's like, let's say you play 10 games, there's going to be a max of 2 games that you're going to win no matter what you do. There's going to be a max of 2 games you're going to lose no matter what you do. And you got to be the difference in those 6 games between going 2-8 and 8-2, or whatever it is, 7-3 or 6-4, to see that improvement. He's like, sometimes you'll have one game where you'll, you know, he's like, it's all going to even out in the end. No one's getting hosed and getting the bad teammates every single time.
Right.
He's like, so no matter what's going to happen, you got to be the difference in those 6 games, because there's 2 games you're going to win. And you could be just like Jason's game that you guys rolled to the win and it wasn't even fair. to be honest, Jason, it might not even matter that you were there. But to the other game that you won the close game, that was one of those games where you were the difference. And then you said there was one game where you got rolled, I think is what you said. Or no, you said 3 of them were close. But regardless, you can be the difference, and you just got to learn to be that difference more often than not. We are not at the skill level yet to do that, and we haven't been playing consistently, but we clearly were getting better when we were trying. But who knows? The game's toxic. People are toxic.
I think the thing is too.
I am concerned with what Jason said is the retirement. People played CS:GO for like 5 years before retiring. People play, or maybe even longer before anything ever came out. People played Call of Duty for a decade before you really see people retiring. People still retire, but it's like 1 or 2. Overwatch, it seems it's always like a major deal. And people are just like, the second Valorant came out, people were jumping to Valorant. And it's like, it is a little concerning to see Overwatch when people are just like leaving and being so toxic. But then you have people in like Call of Duty like Karma and JCap leave. And everyone says how amazing it was. And they're always like, dude, this run was so amazing. I loved every part of it. But then some of these Overwatch guys retire and they're like, this game sucks.
So I do want to see.
So weird.
I'm interested to see if Call of Duty has a lot more retirements now that they are in this franchise mode. Because I do wonder if because of what I've heard, that the biggest problem with Overwatch is that because of the franchise model and the way it is and the requirements for each team, that they burn out so hard. I do wonder if Call of Duty with the same franchise model is going to have a lot of the same issues. Or or these people just built different.
Yeah, they built different. They will. Clearly, Scump is going on Twitter and just ripping the most popular, one of the most popular gamers in North America, for people who follow Call of Duty or not. Scump's got, I believe, multiple millions of followers on Twitter. Yeah, it's got 2.1 million followers on Twitter. Just so happened to be up on my Twitter feed.
He streamed to like 40,000 people. Like
what?
He was streaming to like 40,000 people like an hour before we were recording.
Was just ripping the Activision League to shreds. That right before their first tournament, I think it was in Minnesota, they put a contract in front of all 60 pros and said, sign it, and you couldn't bring it to your lawyers or you couldn't play this weekend. So 59 of the 60 signed it, and then the 60th wound up signing it. But now, and so what happened with Scump is he did on his own Twitch stream during the Call of Duty offseason, had a sponsored stream for a different game, for a mobile game. And he got fined by his league for streaming that game. And he had problems with that. And so just like Jason said, will these leagues cause more problems and retirements? Potentially, because Scump's like, this is my streaming. I'm just streaming. He's like, I'm not working. I'm streaming, and I'm getting fined by the league for it. And he knows he's going to get fined for saying this stuff, because anytime Octane or Crimzik said anything bad about the league, they got fined for it. And I'm sitting here imagining a world in like the MLB where if you were just to criticize the league, you got fined. If you criticize the officiating or what happens in those pro leagues, you do get fined, because you don't want to change the officiating by having one player complain so much about one official that the next time that official officiates his game, he may have a slight bias either towards or against that player to try to even things out, or maybe make them farther apart. But these guys are just saying, yeah, this part of the game sucks, and then they get fined for it. It's a really weird dynamic these leagues have, and I can't imagine these Overwatch players if they got fined every time they talked bad about the game on stream like these Call of Duty guys do. So I do agree in the fact that now it's franchise, Jason, that the first year happened and most players survived, but now you're going to see guys like maybe even some of the better guys that all of a sudden have a little more of a, just like JCap and Karma, who were getting ripped by the league, but are pretty big streamers that average hundreds of viewers. In Karma's case, almost 1,000 viewers a stream. All of a sudden, I'll make money streaming instead of having to worry about winning.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting. I think the other thing is with a game like Overwatch, Overwatch is big in the United States, but it's also big in a lot of Asian countries too, which I think makes it really difficult in general for the way the league is set up, because they've got teams in Asia, they've got teams in the United States, and I think a lot of that travel and that the different times and stuff like that, I think that adds some stress as well, on top of the fact
they literally have 3 continents, dude.
Yeah, on top of the fact that it's pretty obvious that the North American players have a really hard time hanging with like the Korean players. And so a lot of these teams go full Korean, and it's like, man, if I'm the North American player constantly looking over my shoulder, is there somebody going to take my spot? Is there someone going to take my spot? I got to keep grinding. I got to keep grinding. I hate my life, but I got to keep grinding or I won't make my money. And then eventually you just say, you know what? I don't want to do it anymore. You know, because in Overwatch League, it really does seem like they will replace you instantly. I mean, Call of Duty with the franchise, they stayed really loyal to a lot of the big names.
Like the bottom couple teams, like even Seattle, who was terrible all year, the only reason they made a roster switch was because Karma retired.
Yeah.
The only teams that really did anything were, I believe, the 2 LA teams when they decided to like switch out a couple players. But most teams had the exact same pros, or they traded teams, but the same players played. Like even though like Optic made a trade for Pristini was a starting player in Florida and then was starting on Chicago. I think I called him Optic, but Chicago. But yeah, you hadn't seen that much yet. You hadn't seen the ruthless of what Overwatch League is in COD. A lot of guys starting to finish the year if they deserve to or not.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting seeing that move forward. With that being said, though, this is probably our longest podcast.
Oh yeah, we're about 2 hours.
We've definitely cranked out some good conversation here, but with that being said, we probably should be wrapping it up. So thank you guys so much for watching. Once again, make sure you hit that subscribe. You know what? I appreciate all your guys' support. I know Logan does too. But with that being said, we are out of here. Catch you next time.
Bye.
Bye.